Hey, all right, I record. All right, 3, 2, 1. Here we go, you guys. I am here with Dan Diedrich, and we're doing this sort of like combined podcast, and I'm fired up for it. Dan, how are you?
Good, man. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm good. So you guys don't know, Dan has his own podcast called the Professional People Podcast, and it's kind of on the same vibe with me, right? We always go, we bring the energy, we're trying to lift people up, and we're trying to get people in the know. So Dan, give me a little bit more on your podcast too.
Yeah, so I started my podcast at the beginning of COVID, and it was kind of where I was thinking, I was sitting down, I was like, okay, I'm a big networking guy, I'm an insurance salesman, so, I'm in a bunch of networking groups, that's how I was doing a lot of my business. How am I going to innovate and put out content to make me still relevant?
Right.
Wow, I'm sitting in my living room, my boxers working.
Especially during COVID, man, that was the whole problem of like,
so,
how can you get out there?
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, so what, I had the idea, okay, podcasts, that can give me a lot of content, long form. I listen to a ton of podcasts, I love podcasts. And so I was like, what can I do that brings value to people? And actually a podcast I listen to called the Insurance Guys Podcast, Bradley Flowers, is like, he talks about how putting content out there that highlights other people is so much more valuable than just talking about yourself all the time.
Absolutely.
So what my idea was, is I just wanted to bring, I work with business owners, so I wanted to work with different business owners and professionals and bring them on to tell their story so I could learn from them, and also kind of like a free commercial for them, right? So like highlight these other people, get their name out there, but be able to share that with my network.
So you've been like bringing other people, like your customers, right, clients, that they come on and they're like, here you go, like let's talk about what you do, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Customers, clients, prospects, anyone who's a professional. I just like, let's highlight their story and get it out there.
I like the prospect idea of, hey, like I got a podcast, like come in, like you're in the office, like you want to like drop a podcast real quick, like we'll put it out to people. I think that's super cool.
Much more inviting than, hey man, can I just get your insurance policy?
Hey man, like let's write your life insurance, your auto, your home. Dude, I'm gonna be honest, I'll tell you. So I worked with my mom at State Farm. I'm horrible at insurance. Like, and after like working for a summer, I'll never be back in. Like my entire family's in insurance. And I did it for a summer. This guy's out. Like,
it's not for everyone. It's like it's like a different language for people,
it is.
Right?
I'm like sitting there on like Salesforce and all that, and mom's like, you gotta do all this. I have no idea what's going on.
Sure. But how about we get to your podcast? What was, kind of tell me how it started for you?
Yeah, so I started it right because, during COVID, everything was sad, right? All the news was sad, everybody was mad at each other, and I'm like, people kind of need an outlet, a different break, to hear that, hey, we're gonna get through this, we're gonna be okay, and something that's just gonna bring your spirits up, right? So I love hearing different people's stories. I like hearing people that have come from hard times and, gone from the bottom to the top super quick, right? So I love bringing different people on that are super motivational, done well, like you being an All-American. 4 times, 3 times?
3 times.
3. Damn it, Dan. Should have been 4. But different things like that of how you stay motivated to keep grinding, keep working, and just trying to keep people smiling. I always said, like, if one person listens to an episode and it's like, okay, they got something out of it, it works for me. Like, I'm super, super excited for it.
Yeah, dude, and you've been killing it. I mean, you've had some big names on you.
I'm trying.
Professional lacrosse players,
yeah.
Bachelor guests.
Bachelor Nation's my favorite. I'm not gonna lie, like when Bachelor Nation's like, yeah, I'll do a podcast with you. Like, right, I'm a little giddy inside. But I love it. It's tons of fun, and it's, gets out. This is my first in-person. You've done all in person, right?
I've done a mix.
So
it started with COVID.
Right, everybody had to be online.
Yeah, but I think, just it's a better conversation in person.
It's so much, and this is like, it's different for me. I'm used to like sitting there on Skype, like looking at my iPad, like going for it. But this is awesome.
You get the energy of the room.
It's so much better. And I was like a little nervous because it's my first one, but this is gonna be, I'm excited for it. So let's dive in. What do you got on your sheet there?
Yeah, man. So I was kind of thinking, since we both have a podcast, I wanted to share to our listeners kind of what was kind of had going in the background, and for anyone else who was thinking about starting a podcast or wanting to start a podcast, kind of share our experience so far. We're both not that far in, but enough to be dangerous, right? So what I said was, it really had to start with the idea, right? So
Absolutely.
Both of us, you wanted to bring some positivity in the world during COVID. I wanted to stay relevant in business and on social media and stuff like that. So it started with an idea. You had to be creative, and you started the idea, I have a podcast, but then you had to go from there.
Right.
What was that kind of creative process, and like where did you start, and how did you get to, okay, I'm recording episode 1?
Right, so I started a website called The Charge Court, And I'm in public relations, right? So everything I do is all about content. So it was a good way for me to practice my writing. It was just a blog. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not the best writer. It was good practice, but I think more of a podcast would be more at my speed. I want to be on radio. I want to do all that good stuff. So I'm like, hey, let's start a podcast. I did my first one. I actually thought about starting a podcast a couple months ago. I did my first one. It was absolutely horrible. I'm like, this sucked. Like, nobody's going to listen to this. And then I was like, how am I going to stand out? How am I going to be different? What works with me and how I think I can help other people? And that was motivation, right? Standing out, being different. There's 1,000 sports podcasts. There's 1,000 comedy podcasts, right? Like, how can we find a way to make a connection with somebody and tell those stories of different people? So that's kind of my idea of like, hey, let's bring different people on to share their stories, how they got better. And that was, for the most part, my goal. But it really just took, hey, I'm going to do it, right? As you know, making a podcast isn't the easiest thing, right? You got to take your time. You got to do some different edits. You got to do all this stuff. Make time to go meet with people. Find people to come on your show. And that was kind of my idea of like, I'm going to do the work. I want other people to do the work too. And we'll get rolling with it. So that was where I started.
Yeah, sure. And that's number 2 on my list, is that kind of what you were alluding to there, is having the confidence in yourself to say, I'm going to do it.
Right.
To take the leap of faith and being vulnerable and putting a recording of yourself for
right.
a half hour, an hour conversation. I mean, it takes a leap of faith, and then after you do one, it takes the discipline to do another one.
It does. It's not like I was literally this week, it was Wednesday night, and I was like, I had an interview that I had, and I was like, do I want to go downstairs though and put it together, do my intro, do the exit. It was 9:30 and I honestly forgot. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have a podcast I have to do. And I was sitting there, I'm like, do I want to do it? Like, just in my head, and I was like, let me see. So I listened to my episode on Tuesday, and I'm like, did I say I'm going to post one on Thursday? And I said I'm going to post one twice a week. Every week, that's my goal. But every once in a while, like, you run out of stuff. Like, you don't have an interview, you don't have this, you don't have that. But I said, like, hey, I'm going to post one on Thursday. Like, I had Gabe Baker on the show. I'm like, shit, like, I gotta do another one. I gotta do it. But that's the grind of, it's not easy. It's something more that you added on top of your day. And everybody has a lot going on. I mean, you work in, what time did you get here this morning?
About 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, like it's 10:30. Dan's been here for 4 hours, and we're rolling in a podcast, and this is just gonna add on top of it. Right. So I get that.
And then you got the background work. You got to edit everything. Put the
exactly.
intro and
put the intro, the extra. It's a lot. But I like your setup, right, where you can film. This is the first one we're filming. I like this.
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about that. That's next on the list, is the tools. So I got a tripod here recording a video. Alex has got the cool mics. Where did you kind of start when you were looking for what kind of equipment you wanted to use?
So I started with what was just going to be the easiest thing for me, but what was going to sound good, right? So I didn't want to just put something up that like people wouldn't be able to listen to. I wanted it to be on Apple and Spotify and everything that I could just say like, hey, you can go on your phone and look it up. So I bought a Blue Yeti mic. I could just plug it in. I got my iPad, and I was like, this is super easy. Like, I'll do GarageBand, get it done. I recorded my first episode. It was only like 7 minutes, and I think the next one was 14. Then I had my first interview with Nick Wiebe, who was just an awesome guy, by the way. Like, if you haven't listened to that one, give that one. The guy broke his neck, went on to do all these different things, wasn't supposed to walk. 3 days later, the guy was walking out of rehab. Unbelievable. But I made all that, went to do it on GarageBand, spent an hour like trying to edit everything, realized I couldn't there's a time limit, right, on GarageBand of how much you can put in. There was like a 45-minute interview. I went through, worked an hour on GarageBand, realized I couldn't do it. So then I went over to Anchor, which you're on, realized did everything on that, realized I couldn't put it on Apple Podcasts. And I wanted to be on Apple. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing next? So then I finally found Soundtrap, which is like a Spotify thing. I think it's $15 a month. And so I'll record my stuff on GarageBand, download it all onto Soundtrap, and then I'll post it from there. What are you using? Anchor, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I just record on my phone with a tripod, and then I download that into Adobe, do all my editing in Adobe,
right.
Convert that to an MP3 file for the audio, dump that into Anchor.
What do you do on Adobe though? Like,
I just do my edits. I'll put my intro, record my intro, dump it in there. Any I do video, so I'll put the video on top and any transitions or anything from the intro. Right. A little music in there. It has
to be music. I'll be honest, I've just been stealing stuff off like SoundCloud. I kind of hope, like, if I get a cease and desist letter from somebody, that means I'm doing something right.
Yeah, just Google like free music that you can use so I don't get in trouble there.
I mean, that's the thing though, right? It's like how do you find stuff that's going to be engaging with audiences, right? If I have a song that people know and they've heard it on the radio or something, like it's gonna,
Sure.
I think it's gonna bring them in more. Yeah, it's SoundCloud, so I think people steal SoundCloud music to make their own DJs as it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I got a cease and desist letter. Like I kind of hope I get one like from a SoundCloud rapper. Be great content.
Just make sure you got an insurance policy.
Yeah. How do can I buy an insurance policy so I don't get sued? Is that a thing?
Form an LLC, maybe.
That's what I thought. I mean, how do I isn't that a pot? I can write it off, right? If I'm not a business guy.
Yeah, I think you can form an LLC and get some tax.
Don't I have to make money though?
You have to pay, yeah. You
So I have
to pay to register your LLC, and then you
Okay.
have to pay taxes through your LLC.
But what if I don't make any money off of it?
Well, then you're not paying any income tax, but.
So, but like, I could technically.
Call your accountant, Wilder.
I can be
I'm just an insurance agent.
I can be I'll be the CEO of the charge board. I can tell everybody, no, I run my own company.
Yeah.
It's like a podcast, like 16 subscribers.
Hey, get some ads on
We're
there,
rolling.
get some revenue.
This is a good question though for you. I made it a goal for myself. I'm not going to look at my analytics for my podcast at all. Like I don't go on Spotify like podcasts to see how many people are listening, when they're listening. And the reason I did this, right, as much as I do this for other people, right, to get them motivated, at the same time it helps me too. You know, like it helps just to talk, get things out, help other people. That's my favorite thing that I do is just to try and make somebody laugh, try and make somebody smile. And looking at my analytics, I think it would just like draw in pressure. Like, oh, hey, this episode had 100 listeners. This one had like 15. What did I do wrong? Like, how do I get it back? And I just think that's a lot of pressure. Like, do you feel that same way of like you look and see how many people like your post, how many people watch it? How do you deal with that pressure too?
I definitely look because I want to see what's working. And
What's working and what's not. I totally agree.
But I think, like you said, you just got to come in with the mindset. If one person listens, then it's worth it.
It's worth it. That's the goal, right? If it's somebody's listening, and then hopefully, one day it takes off that 1,000 people listen.
And thankfully, like this isn't what we're doing for our
Full time.
well-being. So like it's not like we're doing this for money. We're doing
Right.
this because we want to do it.
Absolutely.
We're trying to provide value to people.
Right.
And as long as you kind of keep that mindset when you're putting out content, regardless of if it's podcast or just post, I think then you're in a good place.
I 100% agree. Like that's the thing. It brings a lot of pressure on you if you're like, hey, I want to make money off of this. I want to do that. But like you just said, it's like we're doing this for other people and even for ourselves too. At that same point of like, it's fun. Like when it comes down to it, like I have a great time. Like being here doing this. I haven't seen you in what, 2 years?
Yeah.
It's been a long time, but to be able to catch up and like do a podcast together, like,
it's cool.
I think it's super cool. And to have that drive for like both of us, right? That we're gonna keep making content and just trying to get better as it is.
Sure, yeah.
It's
To
awesome.
see where it goes, right?
See
And
where
I
it
think, I mean, for me, a big takeaway that I've had is just having like, when you sit down and have an hour conversation with someone,
yeah.
right? It's you learn a lot, not just about what this person's industry is or whatever.
Right.
But you learn about the person and you build that relationship. You say, "Oh, we did a podcast together."
Yeah,
that
like,
sticks with you for a while.
yeah,
Right?
I
It's
do
a little
podcasts
bond,
with that guy.
right?
Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And I personally think, right, like going into that content side of things, that podcast, like radio is, what do I say about radio? It's falling off, I would say, right? More and more people are listening to podcasts. Everything's on your phone, right? Like I think talk shows and stuff like that will continue to drive like what Howard Stern's at $110 million a year from Sirius.
Yeah.
But they're not listening to him for his music or like for anything like that. They're just listening to him talk. And that's kind of the same thing with podcasts. That like more and more people are moving into listening to podcasts on their drive to work, on their drive to do whatever.
Well, yeah, look at the cars. I mean, back 10 years ago, you didn't have Bluetooth
Right.
or USB plug-in. You
Right.
could pull a podcast right up, and podcasts weren't really that big either.
Right.
But now there's just so many different ways to listen to content.
To do so many different things.
different platforms.
Right.
It doesn't even matter what form it is.
Right.
As long as you're putting stuff out, like I said, that's valuable and people are attracted to it. Then,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think with radio and podcasts and how everything you can do is different by listening to them is you can choose literally anything that you want to listen to. When you were stuck before on radio, what is, you know, the 99.5 guys talking about today, or, you know, whoever the radio host is talking about.
Local
something else.
TV.
Right. Now it's, who would have thought, you know, 10 years ago that you could just turn your phone and there's probably 100 different podcasts on insurance.
Yeah.
You know, like
There's a ton of insurance podcasts.
And I never even thought about it, right? But then you think of how many different perspectives you're gonna get on so many different topics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is super cool, that like you and I just in this conversation of like, your podcast is insurance, mine's motivation. We still have that same drive behind it, but we're just gonna get a different perspective on, you know, motivation. I don't know as much about insurance. I think you're an incredible leader, you were my captain. Like, I stand by that, you're a fantastic leader.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It means a lot to me.
Motivation, I'm here to make people happy, right? I mean, hey, we got one person smile off of it, right? So, but that's, you know, the thing of different perspectives, different people, and different professional people, right?
I like that. And kind of like I was thinking, it's demographics too, right?
Yep.
So like our parents' generation more likely to be listening to the radio on the way to work compared to popping on a pod.
Right.
So
I think that we can get that to, you know, start to change, right? Like my Nana, she's like, I'll listen to your podcast, but she's like, what is a podcast? Like, how do I get? But now, like, I think that age demographic like has an iPad.
yeah,
You know, like, and they like,
smartphone for sure.
yeah, and they sit on it and they're like, well, how do I do this? And I'm like, here you go. And then it pops up, right? Like when I drop an episode or you drop an episode, if they're subscribed to me on like Apple or Spotify,
Get a notification.
it pops up on the phone, which I think is super cool to like see. Like I subscribe to myself, of course, and like I'll see like my new episode of the Motivation Magnets out, like, and then you'll see like I follow like a Barstool one, and you're like in between like Barstool Sports or like Joe Rogan. I'm like, maybe one day like people are gonna see like they're following Joe Rogan, they're following the Motivation Magnet, you know, they're following this. So it's cool though. I like it. It's fun.
I mean, for you, you've had some big names on, like we said. Like, let's get into that. How do you invite people that have been on The Bachelor or professional lacrosse players? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I started just to reach out to people on Instagram. I'm like, I'm gonna DM so many people and say if I DM 15 people, hopefully I get one back, right? So I'll be shocked at the people that actually like see or look at my Instagram posts, and I'll tell them, hey, you know, what do I say? I think I have like a basic thing that I send out to everybody. It's like, hey, like I'm a huge fan. Like I started this podcast called The Motivation Magnet. It's all about positivity, you know, good vibes, and telling stories. And I think that people get on that train of like, oh, like this kid just wants to, I'm just a college kid trying to make people smile is how I always end up. And they're like, I'm into this, right? Let's share my story. Let's try and help out somebody. So I shoot out a bunch of DMs and people will respond. And I'll get some people to respond like, yeah, like let's do it. And then I get all excited and then they stop.
Sure.
So it even got to the point where I've had some people like Ray Fulcher. I'll drop a name. He doesn't listen to it. He was going to come on the show. He's like, I'm in. He's on tour with Luke Combs, right? Big name, big country name. And he goes, but I gotta ask like management first. I'm like, oh shit, like as soon as somebody has to ask management, they usually look at my podcast and they see like he has like 16 reviews or whatever, and like, no, like we're like, sorry, you're not gonna waste your time with it. And I think that's a struggle, and then you get some people who are like, yeah, like Nick Urenker, sorry, I said that wrong. He won the CrossFit Games. You know, he was on the show. And he goes, no, dude, let's do it. Like, let's talk. Like, let's get my side of things. Let's share my story. And I think it's just super cool. So I shoot out, I'll be honest, I got my Instagram shut down because I DM'd so many different, like blue check marks. Like, I went to go DM another person, and then all of a sudden they're like, you can't DM. Like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, maybe it's just one person. I tried DMing everybody else, and all of a sudden my Instagram's shut down. It's like, what? And I got a message saying, like, this is a spam account. Like I'm not a spam account, like I'm here. But that's how I've been just like going after people on Instagram. And then I actually lately have started moving into email, right? You'll see influencers and stuff have their email right in their bio on Instagram. And I'll DM them on Instagram, and then I'll follow up with an email. Like, hey, like I just shot you an Instagram DM. This is what I'm doing. It'd be super easy. I give you like it's like a 30-minute podcast, but if people want to go over. I had one with Willie Shaw that was an hour and 7-minute interview. Yeah. But you just let him go, and like it's fun. How are you? Do you just like shoot? But yours is different, right? Because you see like a potential client or.
Right. Yeah. So when I first started it, the goal was kind of be like a more local podcast, try to get local businesses, local professionals on, because that's kind of who my network is, anyways. So
right.
I try to highlight them there.
Right.
And so it's kind of been just like in person or on the phone. If I'm chatting with him, I think it'd be a good guest. Like, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast. I think you'd be great.
Right.
And I just use it in conversation. And it's been brought up in conversation now that I've been doing it.
Now that people see it.
People see my posts and they're like, hey man, I've seen you doing a podcast. I would
Let's
love
do
to
it.
come on.
Yeah.
So
Which is super cool. And I think you have like a big market here too, like being at TDA. You have like all of these, clients that are like professionals and they have their own businesses. And it's like, hey, how can I tap into that market?
Sure.
And it helps them. You're right. I think the way you described that at the beginning of like, it's kind of a free commercial for them because it is. Any publicity.
Who doesn't want to talk about themselves too, right?
Seriously, like that's what. Right, like this is different for me because it's kind of more like I'm used to interviewing people like, what are you doing? Like, let's talk about this. But now it's like about both of us. So I think this is fun.
Yeah, it's definitely the first time I've done something like this too, and I think it's been great because it's like much more conversational.
Yeah.
Rather than
It's like a back and forth.
question after question.
Yeah.
It's just like us shooting the shit of what we've been doing.
Right.
What's been working, what hasn't.
Right, and I'll be honest. Like you have a sheet written down in front of you. I wrote something down for my first podcast of like what I'm gonna do. I've never been able to like stick to it. Like, do you have that problem of like I'm gonna write something down, I'm gonna stick to my script, or do you like sometimes worry like, oh, what am I gonna say? To this?
No, I don't do the script, but I like to be prepared.
Have something
so
with
I like
you.
to do my homework and
Yeah.
So I have had a lot of people on that I know personally.
Right.
So those ones take less preparation for sure.
Right.
But people that I don't, it's definitely I'm going in and researching their company, so I'm educated on what they're going to be talking about, and also just check out their LinkedIn, see what they've been
Right.
doing, things like that, and then I'll just get like a couple bullet points that I think would be good talking points to share with the
Right, just in
audience.
case it gets to.
Yeah, sure. And then I just walk down the list, and if I come up with questions on the spot, I mix them in.
Right, like just go with it, go
Yeah.
with the flow.
Yeah.
That's more of like how I am too. Like I'll look them up, like, hey, what did they do? When did they win something? Or like when I like Nick Urenka. I like keep going back to this guy, but I always like.
You're a big CrossFit guy.
I'm a big CrossFit guy. I'm a CrossFit Bachelor guy. I'm a simple guy. Okay, I like watching The Bachelor on Tuesdays, and I like going to the gym. Leave me alone. I love it. But I was like, when did you start at the gym? And I like looking all this stuff when he bought his gym. Like, what place did he come in? Like 2016. Like 2016, he was like 18th place in the worldwide CrossFit Games. So I think it's wild,
Right.
like which is crazy. And then he went from 35 to 39-year-old and won the CrossFit Games. And I asked him, and I think he said this. I was like, was that like the coolest moment in your CrossFit like career, like anything? You won the CrossFit Games. She goes, no, I expected to win. Because if I wouldn't have won, it would have been the worst moment of my life. He goes, well, was this the best moment? Absolutely not. And he said the best moment in his CrossFit Games career was coming in like 22nd place in like a marathon route. He goes, the reason that this is my favorite one is because I was not expected to do well. I didn't think I was going to do well. And he goes, but I did better than I thought I was going to do, and that was like my favorite thing. And I just think that like I think we kind of need to dive into a little lacrosse here of like, 2 years ago, did you guys think you were going to be playing for a national championship?
Yes.
Like you expected it, right?
Yes.
That was like it's on our home turf.
No one else did, but we did.
Right, and that's the kind of mindset you have to have of like, you got to believe in yourself, and I talk about it all the time. You have to have faith in yourself, and you have to trust that if you put in the work, you put in the effort, you're going to get there. So talk to me about a national championship. Like, talk to me about how.
Well, dude, it was kind of crazy because you were around for a while.
I was there that first semester.
Yeah, and you were there the last year. We were preseason ranked number 6, and we didn't do too hot. Right?
Nope.
So
We didn't even make playoffs.
we didn't make the playoffs. Nope. And so we were kind of slept on, but we knew we had it in us. And,
Right.
it was kind of crazy because we played to get to the national championship. We get into the playoffs, right? We did our thing and got into the playoffs, and that was not a surprise. We were expecting to make it there. And we're the 6th seed out of 8, and we get to play Lawrence Tech, one of our rivals, first game.
Did they win the WAC?
They had just beat us in the WAC semifinals.
At home, right?
At home.
That's
So
tough.
that was a tough loss,
That's
but
tough
then
loss.
we get them again.
It's hard to play people twice.
Right.
It's
We-
almost like you're glad you didn't win that first game
Sure,
because you're
right.
like, I got there.
We got them when it counts.
Yep.
So we beat them by 1 in the playoffs, and then who do we get next? We get our next rival, Indiana Tech. We get to beat them. So those are two of the rivals that we've been playing for 4 years, and as a senior, and we finally make it to the playoffs. Not to mention, we just graduated an hour before the national championship. So
Really?
we get to play all the playoffs on our home field, and we beat two of our rivals. We graduate, and then we play a national championship on the same day.
That's a good. I mean, that's a damn good.
I mean, the game didn't go how we wanted to,
Right.
but I mean, that's something that
You never
us as
forget.
a senior class, we're never gonna forget.
No,
that.
never forget. I think that's absolutely awesome. I had no idea you guys graduated that day. Which is
Yeah,
like,
we took golf carts. We took golf carts from the gym where the graduation ceremony was over to the locker room.
I mean, how are you sitting in graduation like, oh my gosh, like this is like one of the biggest days of my life. Like I'm graduating college, but like you're in your head, you're like, get me out of this graduation. Like
I had
it's time to go.
I had my film sheet in my lab
Yep.
studying for the game. I was not very focused on
graduation and all. You're like, who gave the?
I was
speech?
excited to get past the stage so I could get on my golf cart and
Yep.
get back to the boys in the locker room.
You're walking by like, got my diploma. Right, see you guys. Grab your helmet in one hand, diploma in the other, and just go for it.
I think all of us were just so excited. You
Right.
know, like we just graduated and now we're about to go play for the
That
national
energy.
championship.
It's bringing the energy, right? I talk about it all the time. Like if you go into something fired up, have the mindset of like, I got this, right? Like even if you're probably an underdog, right? Because was Reinhardt number one?
They're number one.
Yeah. So going into it, right? But it's your home turf.
Yeah.
You know, like, but you have the mindset of like, no, like I expect to win, not like, oh, like what if I win? What if no? I expect it.
No, you have to, and even if you don't, you have to think why
Right.
play the game?
Why play the game if you don't think you can win? I 100% agree with that. Like I'm coaching football right now, and we have a game tonight, right? And it's our first game back. All the kids were in quarantine for a couple weeks because there was like COVID cases, right? So they couldn't play. They actually couldn't play for 3 weeks. So they played the first 2 games. Now it's the first week back, and like MLives and all those predicting us to lose by like 25.
You gotta play the game.
You got to play the game.
Yeah.
Kids are like, who cares? Like if somebody says like some reporter says you guys can't win, like who gives a shit? Like know it in your head, know you got it.
It's the same thing when it comes to podcasting too. Like if you're worried about starting a podcast and you're worried about what people are gonna say,
Right.
you probably shouldn't.
Start a podcast. Like
You're always gonna have people who are gonna say negative things.
Always.
That's how the way of the world is.
that's why like back to
Like-
analytics, I don't look at it.
But then you gotta be able to overcome that and be the positive.
Positive vibes only.
Yeah.
Like you got to just like let things roll off. Who cares what people say about you? Like you obviously like, and that's like kind of like a two-way street of you have to care about what people say about you, like your family. You know, people that you respect that have your best interests at hand. That when they say something about you that you're not doing right, you're messing up. You have to take that respect and like, right, I need to listen to them. But like people that are just like tweeting at you on social media or something, like
You have to take everything with a
cares?
grain of salt, right?
Right.
So you should listen, and that's why I like to look at the analytics and everything. I like to see what people
what works,
enjoy.
right? And I do I don't look at it, and that's a terrible thing, but it's just like a
But
mental.
it's a mindset.
It's a mental health thing for me. Of
Yeah.
like I don't want to like look at it and see like, oh, like,
Sure.
2 people listened to my episode today. I just want to think that like 2 million are gonna listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, just as that last little point on the sheet, and it's kind of a good segue, is I don't get as many views at all on the actual full podcast. It's the clips
Right.
that I post on social media, like the short 2 to 3 minute clips. Kind of the best part, I think, of the pod. And I've seen your clips. I think they're really good. What kind of things are you using to create those?
So I used an app called Mojo, right? And I think it was like another like $15 a piece or something. And you could take like little video clips and you can post them on your Instagram story. And then I've been using lately, it's called Over. And it's less video. There's tons of different content on here. And it's got all different templates and you can post different things. And like what I've been finding is I get a lot of interactions if I have like different motivational posts. Like I try and post something motivational every single day. Like people are scrolling, I said it before, like you scroll through your Instagram feed or your Twitter feed and there's a lot of like depressing stuff on there.
Right.
It's nice to see something of like, oh, like you got this. Like I posted something today of like, just be kind to yourself. You know, like think in your head, like be nice to yourself. So that's what I've been using of like, I'm gonna post differently on Instagram. I've been trying to get more into Twitter. I'm not that big on.
Not a big Twitter guy.
Yeah, I love Twitter. I absolutely love Twitter. I think like I just scroll through Twitter and like that's where I get my news from is Twitter.
Okay.
like see like what's like watching the debate, like
Right.
what's trending on Twitter, like watching this, like what's trending on Twitter, like figuring out where everything's going. But no, I'm not too big. I know you're big on Facebook. Like I don't really post on YouTube. You're on more on YouTube.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do pretty much everything but Twitter, right?
Right.
So, and it's because I don't remember my.
Are you on TikTok?
password. No, I'm not on TikTok.
You thought about getting on TikTok?
I've thought about
It
it.
takes one video to just
I've
blow up.
thought about it. I don't know.
I think TikTok could be. It's like all the like
The
little
younger
clips you do.
generation, Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's something I definitely gotta look into. I'm a little scared with the data. To be honest.
What am I using on TikTok that somebody's gonna take? Didn't it sell?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But that was why I was hesitant. But maybe, I mean, for sure, definitely.
Might as well. I think I posted something on TikTok and it was like one of my clips and it got a couple thousand views.
Yeah.
Just for when I posted like one little thing, like I did that 8 for HHT thing, right? And that was like another reason why I started the podcast. Of if people I know, like if you don't know my 8 for HHT, I started it. I did 8 burpees for HHT, which is a blood disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was trying to get like other people to do it. And like eventually got to the point of like HHT, the organization like worldwide, reached out to me, and they're like, hey, like we want to run with this. Like, can we have your video and post it? So it got taken from just my Instagram, and they were posting it in their groups in Ireland and like Peru and Cuba and like all these different places of like people that have HST groups, and that's where it was. And I thought it was just like the coolest thing of how are we going to get people to be, motivated to do something for other people, and that's where I kind of started the 8 for HST and then segued into the Motivation Mag.
I think that's awesome, man.
It was fun. Like I didn't get to 1,000. I was gonna do 1,000 burpees, and then like COVID hit, so I'm like I gotta stop like trying to promote HHT when like we're in the middle
It's
of
kind of like
pandemic.
the ice bucket challenge kind of deal,
I
right?
completely stole it. Like that's how it is though. But then 2 weeks later was the 10 push-ups, right? Kind of. I was like, well, who stole my 8 for HHT with the 10 push-ups? Tag 10 people.
Oh, that push-ups thing took off, man.
I told you, right? Like it takes one thing. Like if you make one video that like people are interested in, and people share it, there it is. Like it takes one day.
Right, and then if you could repeat that.
Right, if you can just keep
then you
going.
know something.
It's so much easier though, like when you can repeat that when you already have that following.
Yeah, you have the foundation.
Right. And I need to do better with this. Like recording this is actually gonna help me out because I'll be able to post it too. Like I know I'm bad at recording my own stuff.
Dude, but I mean, you got great audio content. And
That's where I've been putting my focus.
You do a good job of putting the clips with a nice visual.
Yeah.
When you post it. So
Yeah, being able to
I think
have that.
that's really key. It makes it look super professional when you do like you
Right.
hear the sound like.
Right.
playing and
Right. Do you post on your personal page?
Yeah. So I do. I have a professional people podcast page, and I do that, and then I share from my personal page because I have a bigger following there.
Right.
And
But
then-
how do you like, so I used to post on my Instagram page, right? Like when I post like a normal picture, I got like 350 likes. And then you post like a podcast one, you get like 15.
Yeah, so I use the story.
Right, like that's what I started to realize too, like I don't want to lose followers off of that. Like again, I don't give a shit.
I'll put my clips to the TDA Instagram page, and
How many followers does that have a bigger following?
No, that's
That's
only like
more
100 or
people.
200, but then I'll share that post to my story.
Story. I do the
So-
same thing.
Yeah.
So do you have an Instagram page too for your,
No, I don't. I've just been sharing off the TDA page to
Off the
get some
TDA page.
content on there.
have you thought about like professional people podcasts?
Yeah, I
Instagram?
thought about it, and I was kind of thinking about my Facebook, and I kind of wish I'd never named that Facebook, but I'm running with it because
Right.
I did. And I have people who like it, follow it, so I'd feel.
You get bad if you like just.
But I
just
wish I
stop.
would have just shared it on the TDA page from there. I'd
Right.
just had the podcast on the podcast platform.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, like, would you consider doing like an Instagram one? I think personally, I think Instagram's like the biggest social media platform out there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty big base on my own.
Right.
Personally.
And that, but you just do your stories, right?
Right.
But how many people, like, I look and see, like, maybe like 400 people look at my Instagram story out of the 1,000 followers that I have?
Yeah.
Are you on that same vibe of like you see how many people are on it?
Yeah, I don't really look as much as that on the analytics, but I'm a big Facebook guy, like you said.
Right.
And LinkedIn is really where
That's
professional people podcast, right? LinkedIn is my
that's
biggest,
where you should be your
yeah, that's my
demographic.
biggest strength.
I didn't even think. Luckily, I'm not in
Facebook,
insurance.
Facebook I like because I'm going for business owners, so it's kind of the older demographic.
That's the perfect demographic.
So I'm going Facebook for that. Instagram is kind of like, okay, I'll have my friends and people who I know pretty well see
Right.
it, which, you know, they're more apt to listen to my podcast than a
Right.
stranger. So I think that's a good place there. And then LinkedIn is really kind of my focus because it's the professional people podcast. It's the professional people social media.
I totally agree. I mean, what do you think about LinkedIn having stories now?
I think it's pretty cool, right? I mean, you just
Are you ever gonna post like a LinkedIn story?
Sure, I'll post this clip on my LinkedIn story.
That's fair.
But the only thing, they have like a limit. They have a second limit. My clips are usually 2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes.
Too
But
long.
can you swipe up? Like, can you make a link to your YouTube?
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah, because like I realized on Instagram until I tried to get verified, so
How'd that go?
it didn't go well. Again, that's why they keep shutting me down
Spamming.
because I keep spamming people. But if you like are verified or like you're a certain account, you can swipe up on your story. You can't do that on like you and I's Instagram page.
Okay.
We can't like swipe up to a link. Like I'd have like some of the people that come on my show, they'll put on their story and they can swipe up to it.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I think that'd be super nice to be able to hey swipe up.
I mean, there's just so many different tips and tricks on social media and all the different platforms. And
It's unbelievable.
It's you really
It's
got to
taking over the world.
dive deep on one to figure stuff out at a time. I think
Yeah.
and focus. But I mean, there's so much different content strategies, and, like different things.
The algorithms.
Boosting posts. I mean, I'm watching The Social Dilemma tonight. I'm putting that on my
Yep,
list. I
yeah.
need to. Too
Yep.
many people talking about it. I
Have
haven't
you not
watched
seen
yet.
it?
No, I gotta watch it.
So basically then Mark Zuckerberg's a scumbag. Like,
Yeah,
that's what I get out
I've
of it.
heard it's pretty creepy.
It is like, but he stole Facebook. Like I never even saw like Winklevoss twins. I think they're billionaires now, right?
Yeah.
And like, what are they? What's the Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard their theory on them like saying, what's his face? Elon Musk is gonna like mine gold in space and it's gonna rain down.
No.
You need to watch the Winklevoss. Like
It
it's
sounds pretty wild.
unbelievable. Like it's like a 15-minute video of them with Dave Portnoy of Barstool saying like, no, dude, like Bitcoin is gonna be the only value because gold's gonna rain from the sky
People have been saying Bitcoin is going to be the only currency for a while.
forever.
We'll
Wasn't
see
that
how-
like $30,000 at one point?
I'm not sure, man. We'll see how it
I'm
pays.
not a big stock market guy. I wish I was. Are you in the stock market?
A little bit. I mean, we do some financial planning over here, so
Right.
so
You have to,
definitely
like,
have to
dabble
be
in.
well versed. But
So are you more
of a
in
conservative.
Yeah.
I'm
right?
an insurance guy. So
Not
I'm conservative,
you're not taking like thousands of dollars and putting out like penny stock.
Not
Yeah.
like a Roth IRA kind of.
Right, like
Keep it
putting your
safe.
401k
Yeah,
and just like
exactly.
grow. Are you like here at TDA? Are you more into like auto insurance or?
So we do everything. We do auto, home, umbrella, life, health, and business. And our main piece is the home and auto. We've
Okay.
been doing that for a while, but I'm in charge of our business lines.
Okay.
So that's the commercial business, insurance, and the group health, employee benefits kind of deal.
Oh, okay. So instead they go with like so companies, right? Will come through you and they'll get there. Like, their company
so we're like a broker for.
Okay.
So instead of like your mom, she's State Farm.
Yep.
She's got State Farm. We work with like 10 different independent carriers that are
Right.
different. So we have different options.
Right, for different people.
Yeah, and different kind of businesses. We have other brokers that we work with for extra and specialty line stuff and things like that.
No, I like that. Right. I think I gotta ask. Right. So I ask all the time. What's one piece of advice that you have, like motivation-wise? We'll take it to the motivation
Yeah.
angle. What's one piece of advice, for either like lacrosse players that listen or people that are going to business, people making a podcast, whatever. Like how to stay motivated during all this.
I would just say, stay true to yourself. Do what you want to do and work super hard at that.
Right. I totally agree.
So
Totally agree.
find something that you like doing, and then it's not work.
I agree.
It's passion. It's a passion at that point.
Yeah.
That's
I like
how
that.
I feel about insurance, and that's how I feel about marketing, and that's why I do this social media stuff. So
It's fun.
just find stuff that like lacrosse. Like I love lacrosse.
Yeah.
I put my life into lacrosse for.
Are you gonna
how
start
many-
coaching?
I'm already coaching at JV at CC. So.
Ah, well,
Yeah.
you should come over to Chicago.
No, but how about you, man? I always end up mine with one tip for professional people. What do you got for us?
One tip for professional people. Wow, that's a good question. I don't know how professional I am. But I think it's, kind of along the lines of like what you said, having a passion for something. And that is like stay true to yourself and have faith in yourself. Like you got to believe that you can do something, right? If you want to go do something, go do it. Who's stopping you? Like I have these 5 daily reminders I always end my podcast with. And it's limits are only in your imagination is one of them. why are you setting limits on yourself? Nobody makes that for you. Like, if you want to do something, go do it. So that's kind of my piece of advice. Like, don't set limits on yourself. Like, they're only in your imagination, not real. All right, I got one final question though. One final question, then we can wrap this up. What kind of music are you listening to right now? Like, what's one song, like, or an album that you can jam out to?
Dude, I mean, you know I'm a country guy.
Yeah,
You
we
know
love
I'm a
country music
guy at
here.
heart. One Beer by Hardy's got me.
Oh
going
god,
right
it's such a
now.
good song. I DM Hardy on Instagram. I DM him. I'm gonna see it until he blocks me on the DM again.
Get him on, man.
If I got Hardy on the show, I think there's like certain people that like if I ever get on the show, I might like stop because like that's my peak of like I don't know if I can beat it. But that's awesome. I'm a big Hardy fan. Like my favorite, Luke Combs just dropped his new like deluxe edition.
Man, he's had a year, huh?
Oh my gosh, how do you go from what 3 years ago you had Hurricane to you're the guy? Like you're up there with Garth Brooks now.
For sure.
Unbelievable. But Dan, this was awesome, dude.
Thanks, man. And for all you professional people out there, we're all motivated from the magnet over
Yeah.
here. Let's go kill it.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. This was awesome, Dan.
Thanks,
this was
Alex.
fun. All right, cool.
Shit, man.
Yeah, that was tons of fun, man. That was awesome.
That was good.
Appreciate it.
That was good.
Yeah. God, I was getting sweaty. I always sweat when I'm talking though. That was fun though.
That was awesome, man.